Hello, everybody. Jonathan Pola here with West Coast Weather. Today is December 27th, and we're going to talk about these two powerful storm systems that are going to bring frontal systems into the area over the next few days. The first frontal system is already moving into much of the West Coast, bringing rain showers all the way from southwest BC down to California. Some isolated thunderstorms are possible for parts of California and parts of the coastline as we go through this afternoon and evening. And then we're also going to take a quick look at the extended forecast, as it looks like we're going to continue to get a couple more systems through the weekend before it may dry out for much of the Pacific Northwest. There may be a couple more systems moving into California as we go through early next week, but we'll look at that as we go. And we're also going to take a look at the extended forecast and see what weather we may expect as we go through later next week as well. So without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now we're looking at general ridge and trough positions on the European model. Here's British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, California. Here's Hawaii down here in the center middle. Here's Japan over here. Russia's up here. And then here's Alaska up here. You can see the powerful Gulf of Alaska trough storm machine is up and running as we go through later today into tomorrow. That's what this troughing is what brought us the system on Christmas and on Tuesday as well. This is bringing a frontal system into the west coast as we speak right now, bringing some breezy conditions in parts of the coastlines and northwest interior of Washington state. Also bring scattered rain showers and some isolated thunderstorms to the parts of the coastline as well. Now as we play this out, we can see that this first storm we're talking about right now weakens and moves northward. Thankfully, most of these systems are staying right off the coastline, so they're not going to bring any damaging wind events or anything of that sort. And that weakens, and then you can see the next system as we go through later on Friday into early on Saturday, dying on the coastline as well. This one kind of moves into California, bringing more prolonged precipitation to parts of California. Then you can see a cutoff low starts moving in over California. This is going to bring even more precipitation to parts of California as we go through Sunday into Monday for much of California. But as that upper level low moves off into California, it's going to generate a ridge over much of the northern west coast. And this is going to bring some relatively dry weather as we go through later this week and into early next week. But we can see that there's another upper level low that's starting to move in towards the coastline as we go through the Monday, the Tuesday timeframe. The GFS also shows this as well. So there's some pretty good agreement on this system moving into parts of the west coast. This is going to bring some precipitation to parts of Oregon and Washington as well, but looks to mostly target California as well. Then we look to build a possible ridge as we go through later next week and the next weekend, but the models start differing on what exactly is going to happen during this time frame. And this is to be expected because this is 8 to 10 days away, so plenty of time to still look at this. Now taking a closer look, here's British Columbia, Washington, Oregon, California. This is the European model as well. This is 6-hour precipitation totals in inches. And you can see the frontal system moving through this morning. And you can see that these rain showers and potential isolated thunderstorms continue as we go through this evening, on and off. And then we get a bit of a break here on the west coast as we go through later on Thursday, but you can see already some more showers approaching the coastline as another frontal system moves in on Friday. This one's going to target California a bit more, bringing some decent precipitation totals to parts of the coastline and some of the Sierra Nevada mountains and some of the valley locations. You can see the showers continue from that system for parts of the Pacific Northwest and Southwest BC as we go through later on Saturday and early on Sunday. Then you can see that cutoff low kind of clip California. This first one kind of just clips California, maybe bring some potential rain showers to parts of central and southern California, but not looking too impactful at this time. And you can see the next system that the models have been showing for later on Tuesday. You can see it bring some showers and rain into much of the west coast, also targeting California mainly, but it's spraying precipitation all the way into the parts of southern BC. And this kind of spins and moves off towards California before ending for much of the west coast. Now, taking a look at the Storm Prediction Center's day one thunderstorm risk, they have the coastlines and much of Northern California highlighted in this risk. And this is going to be through all the way through later tonight. So there's going to be some potential thunderstorms that I'll show you here on the European model. This is looking at the lightning flash density. This basically shows us where the model thinks thunderstorms are going to be, and you can see there's this pretty strong cluster of thunderstorms it was showing for parts of just north of the Bay Area as we go through about now, but this isn't really happening right now, so the European model kind of overdid that. But you can see parts of the coastline kind of getting highlighted for parts of Washington, Oregon, which is why the SPC put that risk out. And that kind of dies as we go through later on Thursday. Excuse me. Now going through on the national blended models, here's total precipitation inches. And if we let this play out, let me go back to the regular one. There we go. Now, if we just let this precipitation play through, this is by later on Sunday, you can see most of the precipitation is hitting California, which may be 1 to 2 inches up, isolated totals up maybe 3 to 4 inches for parts of the coastal ranges and the Sierra Nevada as we go through later this week into the weekend. But you can see generally light for much of the Portland, Seattle metro areas and parts of Medford, Oregon. Some of the coastlines may be getting a ½ inch to an inch, with the Olympic Mountains and parts of the mountains of Vancouver Island definitely getting highlighted there with maybe 2 to 4 inches. Isolated higher totals possible for those mountains, but that's pretty typical for frontal systems here on the West Coast. Now looking at the 10-meter wind gusts on the European model, you can see that as we went through today, you can see the gusty winds that went down the California coastline. That's kind of already died off now, but you can see blustery conditions continuing on the coastlines as we go through later this evening. Maybe some gusty winds up towards 40 miles per hour for places like the San Juan Islands, Whidbey Island, and the Strait of Juan de Fuca and parts of Victoria, maybe some of the Gulf Islands up there near the Strait of Georgia over in southwest BC and northwest Washington state. But that kind of continues and dies off as we go through early on Thursday. But you can see quick on its heels is another frontal system, not as strong. These kind of frontal systems have been trending weaker and weaker with each of the next storm systems. So you can see maybe bring some blustery conditions to parts of the coastline, maybe some of the higher terrain, as well as some of those east winds start getting generated by that east to west pressure gradient that these storm systems cause. If we switch over to the pressure right now, you can see the low pressure off to the west, and then you can see the high pressure system off to the east. This causes a pressure gradient between the eastern half of the region, and the Cascades create this block, this kind of wall that causes all the air to flow through the gaps in the terrain. So like Snoqualmie Pass, Stevens Pass, those are gaps in the Cascade terrain that allows winds to go through. So they can get some pretty gusty winds and types of setups like this, where you get a low pressure offshore and high pressure inland. And here's looking at total snow in inches on the European model. There's going to be some snow as we go through later this the next couple of days, but not really expecting too much snow. Maybe parts of southwest BC up towards Whistler, but really not expecting too much. And our snowpack is really low right now, and some of the ski areas are having a hard time keeping open. So hopefully we can start getting some snow into the region as we go through later into January. But so far it's not looking like these next systems are going to be good snow makers. So now taking a look at maximum individual wave heights in feet, you can see that there's these storm systems off the coast are going to bring some very large and dangerous waves to parts of the coastline, especially parts of Washington, Oregon. Some waves may be approaching over 30 to 40 feet high, and you can see the maximum wave height down here on the bottom right shows an 81-foot maximum individual wave height. That's probably off with this storm off north of Hawaii, but still you can see the big pink area highlighting off the Pacific Northwest coastline. And you can see as we go through later on Thursday that some of these big 20 to maybe 30-foot waves are starting to approach parts of Southern California and Central California. So some very dangerous ocean conditions are possible and likely on the coastlines as we go through the next couple days into parts of the weekend. So be careful out there. And there's some good graphics from the National Weather Service. This is one from the Portland National Weather Service. This is for high surf, Christmas through Thursday. Chaotic surf zone. Beachgoers can be surprised and swept into the surf. Avoid jetties and logs near waterline on beaches. Don't turn your back on the waves. Here's a good one from the National Weather Service of Medford, Oregon. Dangerous beach conditions. All beaches of Douglas, Coos, and Curry counties. High surf warning today through Thursday. Large breaking waves of 25 to 35 feet high. very hazardous beach conditions, waves surging over jetties into normally dry areas, significant beach erosion expected. And there's also going to be some gusty winds up in some of the mountains and valleys of southwest Oregon with winds at 35 to 40 miles per hour with gusts 40 to 60 miles per hour. That's going to be dangerous to high profile vehicles, and loose objects may be blown away. Isolated power outages are possible. Use caution, especially while driving. There's also going to be some rain moving in the parts of California, as I showed with this frontal system the next day or so. This may bring a ½ inch to 1 inch for parts of the northwest coastline and parts of the Sierra Nevadas and the coastal ranges, especially maybe a quarter to a half an inch of rain for San Francisco. Some of this has already fallen. Now, taking another look, the high surf warning also all the way goes down to parts of the Bay Area and Los Angeles. This is I forget which national weather source this is from, but showing the large breaking waves, rip current, sneaker waves, increased coastal run-ups, storm surge. Stay off coastal jays. Keep your eyes on kids and pets, especially avoid going in or near the water. Never turn your back on the ocean. High surf can cause serious injuries or drowning, and unfortunately, every year there's usually a couple people that lose their lives to some of these ocean conditions. So be very careful out there on these beaches, especially the next few days. News from the National Weather Service of Los Angeles: it's dangerous surf, life-threatening rift currents, and coastal flooding. Most significant impacts for the Central Coast, Ventura County coast, and Hermosa, Manhattan, and Palos Verdes beaches. There's an extreme risk, which means you need to take immediate action. Beach conditions will become extremely dangerous Thursday morning through the weekend, and Central Coast 15 to 20 foot waves sets up the 25 feet and potentially damaging coastal flooding. Ventura County coast 10 to 15 foot waves, sorry about that, sets the 20 feet and potentially damaging coastal flooding. Santa Barbara South Coast and LA Coast, the County Coast, 7 to 12 foot waves sets up the 15 to 20 feet near Point Conception, Hermosa / Manhattan / Palos Verdes beaches, and moderate coastal flooding. Recommended actions: remain out of the water due to dangerous surf conditions and life-threatening rip currents. Prepare for significant seawater flooding, especially in low-lying areas, including beaches and harbors. And at high tide, significant beach erosion expected. So some very dangerous conditions expected out there on the coastlines over through the weekend, especially for right along some of those open beach areas. So now taking a look at the European Ensemble members, this is for Seattle, and you can see that most of the malls are agreeing. At least some of these are. A lot of this rain's going to be falling from showers, so it really depends on some of the where the heaviest showers set up. But the mean is up near a ½ inch as we go through later on Thursday, so maybe a ½ inch to a little more than the expected for Seattle. More precipitation expected through the weekend with some of those systems that may be clipping the Pacific Northwest. Here's for Seattle. This is 6-hour max wind gusts. You can see that there's going to be some breezy conditions for this system as we go through later this evening and into parts of Friday and early on Saturday with that next frontal system. Taking a look at the Spokane International Airport, this is precipitation in inches, and you can see they're going to really remain mostly dry for much of the next week or so, but they could pick up maybe a couple tenths of an inch of rain as we go through later on Sunday into Monday with that storm system over the weekend. Here's looking at the Portland International Airport. Kind of a lot of variability in the forecast totals, but may potentially a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch possible as we go through later on Thursday. Not much is looking expected with the weekend storm, though. Here's looking at the Sacramento International Airport in Northern California. Here's showing the potential for pretty decent rain amounts as we go through Saturday into early on Sunday, maybe approaching 2 inches in total from now until through the late weekend time frame. And here's for the San Francisco International Airport. Lighter amounts expected there, with maybe up towards a ½ inch to maybe an inch of rain as we go through later on Saturday. In Los Angeles International Airport, mainly going to be dry until about Saturday morning, with maybe a ½ inch to 3/4 of an inch possible with that system moving through over the weekend. Maybe potential for more precipitation as we go through later next week. Now looking at the 6 to 10 day temperature outlook from the Climate Prediction Center. This is from valid for January 2nd through the 6th, mainly a bit above average for the West Coast, maybe a little bit below average for Southern California. Some of those upper level lows move through. 6 to 10 day precipitation outlook, same time period. This is above average mainly for most of California and near normal for much of the Pacific Northwest, because we're going to get those ridges in and then occasional systems. So it's not going to be like a ton of precipitation. So about around normal, except for places like California with those upper level lows that are going to bring some potential for some pretty decent rain amounts down there. Here's the 8 to 14 day temperature outlook. This is for January 4th through the 10th. About near normal to slightly below average for parts of Southern California, the southern half of California. But there's still plenty of time to look at this, as models aren't agreeing too well in this time range for right now. If we look at the 8 to 14 day precipitation outlook, they're highlighting almost basically the entire western US for chances of above average precipitation, as some Pacific storm systems may start returning to the region as we go through early January. So plenty of stuff to still look at as we go through the coming weeks. Well, that's it for this video. Everybody stay safe out there on the coastlines, especially if you're going to go wave watching, because there's going to be some very dangerous beach conditions for almost the entire West Coast the next couple of days. So just be very careful if you're going to be venturing out there. Some scattered rain showers will continue through the rest of today, and maybe some isolated thunderstorms, especially along the coastline. Maybe an isolated thunderstorm, maybe moving towards Seattle or Portland. Not really expecting that much with that. Next frontal system moves through later on Friday before we dry out for a bit, with maybe another weak system late in the weekend. And then another potential system will likely move through maybe around the Monday, the Tuesday timeframe of next week. That will mainly target California, but will spread precipitation over parts of Oregon, Washington, Southwest BC. But we'll continue to look at that as we go. I'll likely do another video maybe on Friday or Saturday talking about those upcoming systems and what weather we may expect after that. But until then, take care, God bless, stay safe, and have a wonderful rest of your day.